Poke the Bear is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 240, presented by CLNS Media and sponsored by our good friends over at Prize Picks and Gametime Tickets. My name is Conor Ryan, and as you can see, once again, we've got a solo show. It's the calm before the storm right now in the Bruins off season. It's middle of June, the dog days. By the time this episode drops, the Celtics parade has already gone on. Everyone's hungover and tired. People are gassed right now. So I'm going to carve out the time to do a solo podcast for this week and hit on a couple of things. We're going to lead off this one looking at the latest rumors involving Linus Ullmark, which, as I record this, I really hope that there's not a trade or anything else that goes down that makes this podcast null and void, but we do run the risk of it. But we'll talk a little bit about that to open up this podcast. And then, as we usually do with these solo podcasts, we'll take a few questions. I opened up questions for our mailbag via Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called this week. And so we'll run through a few different questions here from our loyal listeners and see kind of what's going on with the Bruins right now. Because, again, a lot's going to hit the fan pretty soon in terms of actual tangible news. We can finally get to that point where we don't have to talk about rumors or what could happen this offseason. We're actually going to finally get a better idea as to how the Bruins are approaching this offseason with all the cap space and the means that they have to really bolster this lineup. But before we get to that, we have to get through another week, a little bit more of that before we get to the NHL draft next weekend. And right now, as currently constituted, the Bruins shouldn't have too much going on at the draft right now, but can change in a hurry, especially if they're able to get a top draft pick via a trade involving Linus Ullmark. And it's the usual suspects we keep on hearing about, right? As has been the case for most of this offseason. We keep on hearing the Ottawa Senators mentioned a whole lot. A team that has some good pieces, a team that I think most people thought were going to make a push this year. A lot of talent up front, especially, but like most teams, if you don't correct your goaltending situation and it really sucks, it's going to bite you in the butt. And then once the season actually gets started. So Ottawa, I believe they had the 31st ranked team save percentage last year. What do you know? Still finished way outside of the playoff picture. A team that, again, has talent, but desperately needs a number one goalie. So you can see why they're in hot pursuit of a goalie like Linus Ullmark, who obviously seems like his time in Boston is coming to a close. And it's kind of an interesting situation, right? Because you look at the news that dropped on Wednesday. If you're a Bruins fan and you're intrigued by the Bruins could get the number 10 overall pick for Linus Ullmark, or there's so many of these teams that even with Ullmark and his no trade protection, there's so many teams that should be lining up for this guy. And you look at Ullmark and the fact that, he's got 1 year left on his deal with making only $5 million. He's still only 30 years old, has a pretty established track record, even if you want to look back at his last couple years in Buffalo when the numbers themselves maybe aren't that great, but the underlying statistics look really good for a guy that, punched above his weight class on a dreadful Buffalo team. Ullmark has a pretty established track record of being a top 10 goalie in this league for a couple of years now. So the value should be there. And then you get to Wednesday where the Devils, who seemed like a perfect fit in terms of a team that needs a goaltender, a team that Ullmark, if he has the trade protection, would probably waive it for, right? Going to another East Coast team, a team with New Jersey that has a lot of talent that seems primed for a bounce back year under Sheldon Keefe. That seems like it would be a perfect fit. And again, if the Devils were going to give up the number 10 pick, that's a slam dunk move if you're the Bruins, right? Ultimately, they get Jacob Markstrom from Calgary instead. Get a 2025. Calgary gets a 2025 top 10 protected first round pick. Defenseman Kevin Ball as well. So they make that move. And then Darcy Kemper goes from Washington to the Kings. The Kings also need a goalie. Seemed like that could have been an intriguing fit, but I don't know if Ullmark necessarily wants to go out to the West Coast. So you wonder if that kind of played into maybe a deal not happening at the deadline. But Darcy Kemper, who's kind of been off and on, honestly, with the Kings, but he is a goalie, and the Kings need a goalie, so they acquire him for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I'm sure will probably hate DC as he hates every other place he goes. Waste of a talent there, but if he gets his shit together, would fall in line with one of many other Washington Capitals forwards who plays a physical game, can get really engaged in the game, and can make life miserable for you. Just again, the body of work with Pierre-Luc Dubois, where he's been, I believe it when I see it. Right, like you look at the talent, you'd love to be proven wrong in terms of what he can provide a team like the Capitals, but we'll see what plays out there. But so you have two teams in LA and New Jersey who are off the board now. They've got their goalies. Seems a little dour, right? Because the Ottawa Senators have long been linked to Ullmark now. We've had Bruce Garriock of the Ottawa Citizen mentioning trade rumors involving Ottawa and the Bruins for a couple of months now. But in the back of your mind, you're always like, all right, like it makes sense from Ottawa's perspective, but would Linus Ullmark really want to waive his no trade clause to go to a team like Ottawa, right? Like, yeah, they're, I guess, an East Coast team, right? They're obviously up in Canada a little bit, and they're a little bit further inland, but it's not like, Vancouver or LA or something where it's on the West Coast and that flight to Sweden is going to be super long. So that plays into it. Ottawa, again, like not really a place that seems like teams or players are lining up to go to. It doesn't help when your arena's like Gillette Stadium and it's like 50 minutes away from the actual city. Doesn't really help in that regard. And they've got pieces, right? Like they've got some talent up front, but is it enough to, I don't think they're like a New Jersey team where it's like, all right, they're missing a goalie and they could really take off. Like we saw New Jersey had a great year 2 seasons ago, and you could see if they just have a missing piece and they get a good goalie, how everything kind of fall into place. Ottawa could get Linus Ullmark, and you still like, is the defense good enough? Do they still have the systems in place with, their coaching staff? And they added Green, who doesn't really necessarily move the needle, I would say. So it all comes back to like, yeah, Ottawa would be really intriguing, but is Linus Ullmark, if he has the trade protections in place, would he actually want to go to Ottawa? And there was a new report from David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period, who seemed to signal that Ullmark would waive his no trade protection to go to a team like Ottawa. So this is from Pagnotta on the Fourth Period that was released earlier on Thursday. There's a growing belief that Ullmark will find a new home within the next 2 weeks. Don Sweeney is expected to escalate some of the trade talks as early as today, though it's unclear how many teams remain in the hunt for Linus Ullmark. As I mentioned on NHL Network on Wednesday, the Senators pushed for Ullmark during the season and have recently circled back in a big way. Ottawa is believed to be on Ullmark's no-trade list, but 2 separate sources have told me that he would accept a trade to the Senators if a deal between the 2 teams is finalized, which, if that's the case, and again, like, even if Ottawa is not the most desirable destination, I think at some point, if you're Ullmark and his representatives, you have to look at it, right? And it's like, is it the ideal spot? No, but if Ottawa is in need of a goalie and they're going to especially give you a hefty contract, because that kind of is lost in the shuffle. Like, Ullmark's not just has control over where he's going. He's trying to secure a long-term contract. And yes, you can make the case that he wants to go maybe to a team where he can further build his numbers and put together a strong year before hitting free agency next year. But if you're Ullmark and you need some stability, and Ottawa's like, here's a $7 or $8 million, a 7 or 8 year deal for really good money, making $7.5, $8 million or something like that, you probably take it if you're Ullmark. It probably changes how you view things, right? If you're able to get that security playing for a team like that. And that, that's the game changer, right? Because if Ullmark is willing to, facilitate a trade like that, and you look at all the different rumors involving Ottawa, right, in terms of, Jacob Chychrun, Ottawa has the Bruins' own first round pick, which I believe is number 25 overall. They have the number 7 overall pick as well, which seems like from what a few of their executives have mentioned during season ticket events and stuff like that, that they'd be willing to move that number 7 pick for the right deal. If you're the Bruins and like Ullmark gives the thumbs up on that trade and you're able to get, again, I don't know if you're getting a Chychrun with the number 7 or anything like that, but if you're able to get a everyday roster player, even if it's not Chychrun, but just a useful forward or something like that, along with a first round pick, whether it's number 7, which would be unreal, or even number 25, you'll take that for Ullmark, who, again, at this point is viewed as kind of a luxury on this team and is a guy that, all things considered, like, you automatically win a trade moving Ullmark in terms of just freeing up the cap space and allowing Jeremy Swayman to ascend into that next role as your franchise goaltender. But if you're able to add a first round pick and a useful player on top of that, that seems like a slam dunk if you're Don Sweeney and the Boston Bruins. So we'll see how that all plays out. It does seem like Ottawa is probably the best bet for the Bruins in terms of probably getting an impact player, unless Carolina changes course and they want to move Marty Necas. But even then, you're probably giving them more on top of that to bring in a 25-year-old winger like Necas. So if you're the Bruins, you probably hope that Ottawa is the team that really makes a concerted effort to get Ullmark. And if Ullmark's not going to stand in the way for a deal like that, I think you absolutely take that if you're the Bruins. So we'll see how that kind of plays out with Ullmark. I'm sure there'll be a resolution at the very least before the NHL draft, because the Bruins are trying to get a first-round pick. You gotta get to the actual stage and get in the mix before the videos start playing over the gigantic sphere in Las Vegas. So it's definitely something worth keeping tabs on. We're gonna pivot now, looking at our mailbag and our user submitted questions. But before we do that, let's take a quick break here from our good friends over at Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of the Prize Picks community today. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, their stat projections, and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Now, here's something that you can think about. What you can think about here with Prize Picks, here's an example of something you could... This is the whole idea behind the concept. Caitlin Clark for more than 3.5 three-pointers made, and Brianna Stewart for more than 23 points. See, it's that simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Once again, shout out to our good friends over at Prize Picks. All right, now we're going to pivot over to our mailbag questions. We've got 4 or 5 of them that we'll roll through before we wrap this episode up today. So let's start off with one from Dan Rooney, who asks, will the coaching staff adjust their power play philosophy? It's too stationary, and they are obsessed with putting McAvoy on the power play, where he clearly doesn't excel. They need Lowry, Lindholm running the point, and need constant movement to use the space behind the net. Thank you for the question, Dan, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. I do think if you're looking for reasons for optimism in terms of especially just players who maybe exceeded expectations this past year and really have room to grow, I look at like what Lowry brings in those really limited minutes. And he's a guy that does seem he could be the proper remedy. Now, again, you have to deal with, the keys to the power play have gone through McAvoy the last couple of years, but as much as McAvoy probably enjoys, shouldering that responsibility, if you're trying to put McAvoy in a better spot to excel where you can, carve out more minutes for Lowry, I think one, it should benefit McAvoy in terms of he's not having his hand in way too many things, and it's kind of stretching him thin, right? Like stay on, you need the secondary power play unit. You can chip in at 5-on-5 play a lot of minutes, play on the PK, all those things where you can really excel. But you look at Lowry and just what he provides on that power play unit, how dynamic he is. There should be a lot of room for growth there in terms of what he could provide that group. Because you mentioned it, like, I think when you look at how this power play took a step back this past year, a whole lot of it comes down to just how predictable they were. And I think you look at when the Bruins were at their best on that power play unit, when you had guys like Krug and obviously Bergeron, and again, like the talent wins out there in terms of just how skilled those guys were during power play situations. But you look at like when Krug would be able to activate, off the blue line, move over to the half wall, guys were able to rotate. You got guys in different positions. And if you're skilled enough to do that and you can improvise on the fly, it already stretches thin and already, shorthanded unit that's under duress. We've all of a sudden you've got guys hesitating for a split second. You have guys scanning the ice to see where guys have moved, whether they've, lost track of their assignment. Are they in the right spot to, block a shot that's coming from the bumper? You have a guy that's moving down to the net front. That unpredictability is something that has definitely been missing from the Bruins power play over the last, year or so. And you only see it maybe in spurts right now, but Lowry, when he's activating and he can, bring that puck and move to the half wall, and he's got the ability to fire off shots there. He's a great passer. And again, like when you have a guy who's 6'5", who's going to continue to fill out, who can hold on to pucks, shield pucks, evade players. Like, I think you look at just the strides that Lowry made, maybe not on the power play, but just every time he's out on the ice, especially in that Florida series where you look at where he was in, October, November, and you're like, you see the talent, but this guy is still maybe not quite ready. You look at that player and what he was against Florida, a team that, look at how Florida plays, would seem to be an awful matchup for Lowry, right? Like, aggressive forechecking team, puts you under duress, makes you make bad decisions with the puck. And he excelled. Like, he has the poise and confidence to evade the forecheck, make the smart, simple plays when needed. But I think you see the confidence and poise and the skill with a guy like Lowry out there. So I do think, I doubt the Bruins are going to give Lowry the keys to the power play out of the gate, but I think steadily building up his reps, and if he excels in it, giving him that opportunity is going to be key, not just to, I think, get his confidence going during his first full season where there probably will be some ups and downs, but I think it just makes your overall unit better when, one, you're able to take McAvoy off those minutes, lighten the load for him a little bit, and I think it just adds more to your overall power play unit. So I agree wholeheartedly with you, Dan, in terms of making those changes and especially getting Lowry more of those reps. All right. And our second question comes from Elliot Gruber, who asks, has there been any news about Swayman's contract negotiations? Feels like the Bruins want to sign him and he wants to play here. So the longer it drags on, the more worrisome it becomes. Thank you for the question, Elliot. I wouldn't hit the alarms yet in terms of the Swayman contract and the impasse or anything like that. I think ideally, if you're the Bruins, you want to get to the finish line before free agency starts. One, just so you can have a barometer or an idea of how much you have in terms of spending power. You don't want to all of a sudden be in a spot where it's after maybe the free agency frenzy has started and all of a sudden you're like, wow, we could still get you crunch the numbers, like we could still get a Anthony Duclair or a player like that can really help our scoring. But all of a sudden you look at the numbers, and because you didn't account for whatever Swayman's going to cost, you're, $750,000 short, right? In terms of what your projections are, or how much you want to leave to the side for Swayman and his contract. So I think it's going to be essential for them to get that contract done before free agency begins. But I also view it as something where I don't think there's going to be a major impasse in terms of the dollars and cents. I think you're looking at right now between 7.5 and 8.5. I have to imagine, as Swayman's the first guy amongst this kind of generation of goalies that are due for these new contracts, right? When you look at Ottinger and you look at Shesterkin and Demko and a few of these guys, it probably is weighing on Swayman in terms of getting the best deal that sets the benchmark moving forward, right? So I'm sure he'd probably want above what guys like Sorokin got, and he wants like 8.5. I think if you're the Bruins, if you have anything around 8, you're happy. If you get anything below 8, you're doing backflips, right? Because I think the potential, the talent is there with Swayman. And again, we touched on this on our last Poke the Bear episode, that I think the Bruins are just that much better and more equipped to take on these contracts when you look at how much the cap should jump up the next couple of years. If you have guys like McAvoy signed for 9.5, Pastrnak for 11.5, and Swayman for 8, and you look at where these contracts are going the next couple of years, when the cap ceiling could all of a sudden get up to $100 million or so, $8 million for a franchise goalie is going to look pretty good in a couple of years. So I think it's not. I don't think the Bruins are like, you know what, I'm going to make another bidding. We're going to have another extended contract negotiation over, we think you're 6.75 or anything like that. I don't see that being the case. but I do think the Bruins, 7.5, 8.5, that's kind of the general range. And I do think they get something done before free agency starts, because I think you just need to have a spot there where you're best equipped to have that money set aside. You know how much you're spending on Swayman, your big, I guess pickup, or your big in-house to-do list thing you need to do this offseason. And it'll let you see just how much you have still left to spend once you get to free agency. So I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet, Elliot, but we will see how that kind of plays out. We're going to continue going through a few more of these questions, but before we do that, let's take a quick break here from our friends over at Gametime Tickets.
Quick break to tell you about my good friends over at Gametime. I am very excited about the NBA playoffs, and what's awesome is here in Boston, Celtics fans make TD Garden the best atmosphere for a playoff game. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Maybe it's the NBA playoffs, or it's the MLB regular season. Once the Celtics wrap up, which hopefully ends with a championship, Fenway Park is a great place to spend a summer day or night. Going from TD Garden playoffs to chill, exciting nights at Fenway Park is one of the best times of the year. With Gametime, there's last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and there's flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there are zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. So, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to the show.
Shout out once again to Gametime Tickets. All right, let's dive right back into this. This question is from Joey Przybylowski. I really hope I didn't butcher your name, Joey. I think I got that right, but please message me, tweet at me, yell at me on the street if I mispronounce your name. Joey asks, any thoughts on what first-round prospects they could have interviewed at the Combine? Again, it remains to be seen. I know they were active in terms of being there at the Combine, doing the due diligence in case a trade does go down, which I think any team has to be prepped in terms of that. It sure feels like if they're realistically looking at trying to get a first-round pick and they're, at number 25, remains to be seen who they're looking for there. But if you're able to get the number 7 pick from Ottawa, if that ever goes down, I think it's fairly obvious what this team is looking at in terms of, a high-end center. And thankfully, this draft obviously is led by Macklin Celebrini, but then it's a lot of defensemen, it feels like. A couple of wings that are high up there. But if you're the Bruins and you're at number 7 and a guy like Caden Lindstrom, WHL centerman, big body, should really fill out. If he's available, you've got Berkeley Catton, who's a bit of a smaller player, another WHL guy, but high-end skill. TJ Ginla, Jerome McGinley's son, another WHL guy. A lot of guys out west. But I think any one of those players, and there's other players, you've Konsta Helenis from Finland, who also is viewed as a really poised young player. I think we can't go wrong with any one of those guys. Like, it might be like if, Lindstrom's available and you've got a guy that's, 6'4", 6'5", that could develop into a two-way power forward type guy, or you got a guy like Barkley Catton who's a little bit smaller but has really high-end skill. I think you'll take your pick of whoever you want. Because, again, like, you weigh, like, the Bruins, and if they're able to get a legitimate top 10 pick. And, yes, we talk about Elias Lindholm and these centers the Bruins are interested in getting in free agency. And Elias Lindholm, I think, would definitely move the needle. But if you're the Bruins, and I've seen this before, like, in terms of talking about Lindholm, people saying, like, we don't need a 65-point guy. We need a franchise 80-point guy. You're not going to get him in free agency. And you're probably not going to get them via trade unless you're going to give up a whole lot of assets in return, or you have to give up a whole lot to get one of those types of players. Those players don't usually hit the market or get dangled out in the trade market year in and year out. So if you're the Bruins and you're really trying to find that, again, it's not a lock, but a potential top line centerman that could be a franchise fixture for the long haul, top 10 pick seems pretty good, especially when you look at just the fact that the way the draft projections are going. If you're in that 7 to 10 range, there should be 2 or 3 or 4 really, promising poised centermen available at that spot. So I really don't think you can go wrong with any one of those guys. But in terms of who they interviewed, sure feels like it was quite a few centers who they kind of did their due diligence on. All right, let's wrap this one up with one last one. This is from G Rant, who asks, "What's more likely, DeBrusk comes to terms, or the Bruins sign Bertuzzi on July 1st?" G Rant, I would much rather the Bruins sign Jake DeBrusk. If you ask me what I think is more likely, I think it's probably Bertuzzi at this point. It just feels like, from how the Bruins discussed DeBrusk on breakup day, where things were going from there. It just feels like the writing's on the wall there that DeBrusk's time in Boston has come to an end. Whether it's the contract, the gap was too large there. The Bruins made an offer that DeBrusk doesn't want to settle on. He's adamant about going to free agency, going out west, something like that. So it does feel like the ship has sailed, which is unfortunate because I think he just checks off so many boxes as to what this team needs. Because again, I think you look at, if you're doing a 1-for-1 swap for Bertuzzi and DeBrusk, yeah, Bertuzzi brings a little bit of different, maybe snarl, I guess, but the playmaking is there. His playmaking with Pastrnak's established, but the defensive part of his game, I think, is the concerning part. And you also have a few injury concerns from his time in Detroit as well. I just feel like a 1-for-1 swap of DeBrusk and Bertuzzi is not actually going to be enough, right? You may have to maybe try to find a value add. Are you getting Bertuzzi and a Daniel Sprong, who again is also not really a good defensive player as well? As much as maybe DeBrusk doesn't have the highest ceiling for a top 6 target, I do think his floor is someone that makes it safe to project where he could offer this team. And if he has a year where he hits 30 goals, you'll take it. It's gravy. But even if he's scoring 20-25 with really good two-way play, you take that. But it does seem like that ship has sailed. So I would say it's more likely right now that Bertuzzi's the guy over DeBrusk, but I wouldn't necessarily be thrilled about it, I guess is how I would say it. So that will wrap up our latest mailbag segment here. Next week, we'll be back at our regularly scheduled programming. We'll start actually looking at the NHL draft, free agency. Maybe there's an Ullmark trade to break down as well. So we'll have all that for you next week. Once again, this is episode 240 of Poke the Bear. My name is Conor Ryan. You fans have a great rest of your week.